Today, we're going to go through the behaviour traits of somebody who we call compliant. And I have used the term also that loves the detail, loves the technical stuff. And you could also call them conscientious, which is probably a nicer term than compliant, because for me, compliant gives me the impression that I'm just going to do anything you tell me to do, and that is so not the case. I'm going to be really obliging, not the case. So yeah, it's more about how conscientious and how much of the detail that these people actually love. Before we start, let me actually give you some details or names of people who you might recognise as being in that conscientious or quite detailed style of behaviour type. So people like Jacqui Kennedy, she is very much into that detail style. Albert Einstein, that should come as absolutely no surprise to anybody that he's in that detailed, conscientious style. Albert Einstein, love the guy. People like Bill Gates and Kevin Costner, both of those are in that style as well. If you were to think about, or I'm thinking about, as I'm saying this, you might even be thinking about people who you think could be in that style, and you'll know more as we go through. But if you're thinking about people who are, or characters in TV shows, people like Spock in Star Trek, and from Harry Potter, Hermione Grainger as well. So yeah, you might see those traits in those people as we unpack and talk about a bit more about them. Let me tell you about compliant, conscientious, techie, detailed people. They are awesome people, and I always say I need more of these people in my life. And I say that because my style, again, being in that direct and influencer style, so very high DI, I need more techie people in my life because I don't always think so much about the detail. There are times that I certainly can, but if I've got somebody who can help me with that detail, it's a winner. It's an absolute winner for me, and usually they love it too. So what are they like? So people who have this behaviour type are pretty conscientious. They're very matter of fact, they're really analytical, and of course very detailed focused. They absolutely love to be precise, and they're very logical people. They also love working with facts, and so they're very matter of fact as well. So it's very facts based. They're not so people oriented, and a bit like the D behavior type. It's not that they dislike people. It is not the case at all. It's just that they love getting involved in the detail, and you might find even people who are into science and engineering and accounting could be more inclined towards that C behaviour type. They tend to ask lots of questions, and often they're very detailed questions, and they really want to know the why. Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? So you'll find that these are the people who, when they're asking you lots of questions, they're doing that because it's really important to them. Now, in the very first session, I said you might occasionally find somebody who points out that in the minutes of a meeting that there's an error, a spelling error, or a full stop missing. And for some people that would be like, yeah, whatever, that drives me insane. But for these people, it's very important because getting it right the first time is really important to them, and we need to be really, really respectful of that. They like decisions based on proof, and proof, a bit like the stabilizer group, they like to have proof, but this time, rather than social proof, they like to understand the history. So they want to know how it's worked in the past and why it's been implemented, and they love to understand the history. So I would say that they're a 3 to 5 time convincer. And I'll talk more about the 3 to 5 time convincer when we talk about what happens when you're sitting across the table from them and you're wanting to provide a solution to their problem and you want to make a sale. So I give them information based on proof. They really value respect and certainty. It's very important to remember when you're dealing with people with this behaviour type, please be very respectful of where they're at. And when you get into the detail, and particularly like if you're a D or an I style who doesn't necessarily do detail particularly well, when you're working with somebody who's a D style, when you're working with somebody who's a C style, and your D or I behaviour traits can come across as being a little bit disrespectful. So be really mindful of that. C types also dislike criticism. And it's really funny because on the flip side, they are also very critical. Don't think about being criticised. There's only feedback. It's feedback. It doesn't always result necessarily in criticism. What about the dysfunctional traits? And again, when you're under stress or pressure, those dysfunctional traits can come out, particularly if you're not feeling good enough or you've got a fear of failing. In terms of being dysfunctional, you can actually really bury yourself in the detail because you've got that fear or that nervousness about failing or not being good enough, or maybe not even fitting in. Sometimes people who have this behaviour type can be very nitpicky, and I mentioned that too earlier when I was saying, they can pick up the typos and they can pick up the full stops. If that gets to a point where it is just nitpicky, that is going to annoy people. So don't do that. Try and hold back. You don't have to pick up every tiny little full stop or every bit of grammar or every typo. You don't have to be perfectionistic. So just try and hang back a little bit, because that might tend to annoy some people, and then you'll find that the relationship can start easily breaking down. Sometimes people with this behaviour style can be a little bit pessimistic, in stark contrast to an I style who is very optimistic. And again, that over-the-top optimism or the over-the-top pessimism doesn't wash well with some people. So it's great to be optimistic, and we're all on that spectrum somewhere from optimistic to pessimistic, or pessimistic to optimistic, whichever way you like to say. It's a bit glass half full, glass half empty. So they are glass half empty people. But wherever you are on that spectrum, remember that reality is important, and you can't take a pessimistic outlook on everything. And if you're in a really dysfunctional space because you're stressed, try and actually look at things a little bit positively. So what if this is you, or what if this is someone you're managing? How would you go about improving their performance or improving your own performance? A couple of things would be around talking more. Try not to overthink things and actually have some input into the conversation. And again, it's probably going to take you out of your comfort zone and into your courage zone, but try as much as you can to talk more. And also make decisions faster and take action faster. You can analyse things to absolute depth, and what that means is if you're really slow to make a decision based on something, you can miss out on opportunities. And there are times where you need to seize the moment and take that opportunity, and if you don't, it is lost. Remember, there is no such thing as failure, just feedback. And if you feel like you've failed on something, just take the lesson learnt. You haven't failed, because people in this behaviour type, we're all doing the best we can. We're all trying to do the absolute best job we have with what we've got. So use it as a lessons learned rather than thinking, oh my God, I've failed. Keep the big picture in sight and do your best to accept ambiguity. Not everything is black and white. In fact, these days, very few things are black and white. There is a lot of ambiguity. There is a lot of uncertainty. That's potentially going to make you feel uncomfortable, but you need to accept it and you need to embrace it. The next thing I want to move to, and the final thing, is around if you're working with somebody sitting across the table and you want to sell them a product or service. Obviously, you're providing a solution to their problem. Remember that these people do love the details. So, of course, the big picture is important, but they want to know more detail about what it is that you're proposing. So be prepared to go in and talk to them about the detail. The other thing is, because they are a 3 to 5 time convincer, if you've given them some information, leave it with them. please don't put pressure on them to make a decision straight away, because that is not what they love to do. And here I am saying, embrace it, embrace decision making and try and do things a little bit faster. But be mindful that people with this style, they do like to think about things. So when you go in and talk to them, give them the details, talk to them about the historical proof or any other part of the proof that you've got around the solution that you're selling into them, and then give them something in writing or follow them up with an email and say to them, I don't want you to make a decision today. I want you to give it some thought, and I'm going to come back to you, if that's okay, in the next day or two and follow up with you to see if you've got any questions. Is that all right? Generally, they will say yes. They might come back and have a whole bunch of questions. Now, if you're a D or an I, you just want a decision. Come on, make this decision. But it's going to take them some time. So you might need to follow up with them 3 or 4 times. But if you can do that and if you can satisfy their needs, then you will more than likely get the sale. They need to know that you understand their needs. So that's really all I've got to say on the compliant types. In fact, there's a whole lot more I could share with you, but seriously, this video would go on for a couple of hours. So I'm not going to do that. I'm really happy if you want to talk to me further about behaviour types. In the next session, I'll take you through the type of report, and I'm just going to have to work out. Here you go. Here's my where I need a C person to help me through the detail of how do I actually show you that on my screen while I'm talking to you. But anyway, I'm going to work that out. They're amazing, these reports, because they give you so much detail and such a deep level of understanding of your own behaviour type. And generally it will be a blended type. It won't be just purely one. That will be really insightful, I'm sure. So please tune in for that, and I'll run you through that real soon. Thanks for watching. See you.